But anyways, yes, forward to the NFL draft. Like you said, Woody Marks is obviously the top prospect for USC. He's projected to be about a fifth rounder, according to ESPN. But yeah, Monheim and then Jalen Smith are two guys that are obviously also on NFL teams' rosters, at least in the draft phase of things. We'll likely see some other USC guys, get signed as undrafted free agents. But those are the three guys that I would expect to be taken. Monheim and Smith are more seventh round guys. But yeah, I think that there's reason to be excited about each of their prospects in the NFL. I think that Woody Marks came into this program already a very dynamic, very kind of well-rounded running back, and only like further established his reputation at USC. Again, he was one of the best running backs in the Big Ten, and displayed a very pro-ready game. So I think that he's a guy who is not only going to get drafted, but should compete for touches in the NFL. And then the other two guys, I mean, they're USC diehards, so I'm certainly happy for them. I'll certainly be rooting for them. Jalen Smith in particular is a guy who I've been around a lot covering the football team, and he's just always a beacon of energy, a beacon of positivity. He has a really infectious smile, so I'm really excited for him. He loves football. He loves USC. Grew up here. Grew up a USC fan, and he gave a lot to this program and really grew a lot. He was a guy who didn't have a big role when he first came, and then turned into one of the best players on this defense. So just kind of really proud of his growth from that perspective as a guy who's kind of watched him, take on that journey. And I wish him the best for sure. I'm always rooting for him. So I think that those three guys are guys that you could reasonably expect. It probably won't be too much movement on the USC front for the first 2 days of the draft, but those three guys are guys to watch out for on day 3 for sure. And yeah, it should be a celebratory day for USC football fans. All three of those guys are widely beloved around this campus and this program. And, so I think USC's fans are really looking forward to seeing those guys taken.
All right. And because it's NFL draft week, we also have to, and you mentioned beloved Trojans, and those guys let's talk about another beloved Trojan, Pete Carroll, entering his NFL draft with the Las Vegas Raiders. And boy, Ethan, I mean, you're at USC. Just imagine being a USC student in that classroom. Professor Pete Carroll bringing in Tom Brady over Zoom as a guest, and Juju Watkins is a student asking a question to Tom Brady about his ACL recovery in 2008. Oh, to be a USC student in that particular classroom, in that particular moment. Just hard to wrap the mind around all of that. But, Pete Carroll and Tom Brady, like, they're all in with the Raiders. Like, Tom Brady being as part of the Raiders ownership group, like, that lent the Raiders the credibility to give Pete Carroll the push to come back to NFL head coaching. So your thoughts on Pete Carroll and the Raiders draft? What do you think they might do at number 6? Now, are they going to take either which player they're going to take, or are they going to trade down for more picks? Like, if another team wants a quarterback at 6, Raiders could trade down and get more pieces. The Raiders also have the number 37 pick, where they could maybe get a project level quarterback, and maybe which guy might be there on the board at 37. Your overall impressions about this draft and what you're looking forward to with Pete Carroll and the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, you mentioned that class. It's funny you mentioned it. It's a class that I have a lot of friends in, and so I hear all the buzz every week. It's a class that's had, guys like Jason Sudeikis come in. I believe Steve Kerr came in. I think also remotely, not in person, but Lindsey Gottlieb's been in. Juju Watkins is obviously a student in the class. I believe Jakeem Stewart is also a student in the class. And it's really a credit to Professor David Belasco, who is a business professor at USC. I took one of his classes last semester, actually, that he co-taught with Cheryl Miller. And that class also had a lot of really cool guests. We had Juju and Coach Gottlieb also come in for the last class of the year for the kind of final panel of the semester. So that was really cool. And a couple other, kind of big name guests as well. Jamil Hill was one of them. So Belasco is a guy with connections, and he's a guy that's always kind of trailblazing with these classes. And he kind of told us about Pete Carroll also came in via Zoom to kind of announce the class and get people excited about it. So Belasco's always got his hands kind of mixed up in trailblazing USC classes. So it's a credit to his influence and his connections for sure. It's been great to have him around. It's something that, he's really been able to connect with a new generation of USC fans and USC students, I think, who, may not have been as big into, I'd certainly hope that some of my fellow students were paying attention when Pete Carroll was head coach at USC, but, not all of them were. So I think that it's helping him connect with the new generation, and once in a lifetime opportunity for sure. I'm really happy for some of my friends. One of my friends in particular, and my former roommate, was is a massive Tom Brady fan, and watched kind of countless Bucs games with him, and so to kind of a dream come true for him to have a class with Tom Brady. So kind of amazing, and it was funny too to watch the videos that came out of that class, because Pete Carroll made a joke about Tom Brady being his boss, and I thought that was just hilarious. It's so weird to think that Tom Brady is 30 years the junior of Pete Carroll, and he's Pete Carroll's boss. What a crazy kind of football world that we live in these days. But yeah, in terms of, that was a really long-winded talk about the class, but in terms of,
and it was great. Thank you. Yeah, we love that.
A little bit of the campus insight. I am still
here.
I think if the Raiders stay at 1, they're picking round 1 at number 6. I think that there's a few different directions that they could go. I don't think that there's going to be a real proven quarterback available there. So, I could see them more likely picking a guy in round 2, kind of like you said, if they go quarterback at one of the top 2 rounds. A lot of mocks that I've seen have them going offensive line and going for someone like Armand Membu from Missouri. But I'm not sure. I think that it would be really cool to see Pete Carroll take one of these USC guys in one of the later rounds, like taking a Woody Marks in around 5, or like a Jalen Smith in around 7. I think that the Raiders official website has actually Jalen Smith going to the Raiders in round 6, pick 180, and that mock that was done by Raiders insider Rhett Lewis. So it's certainly possible. It would be a really cool connection, and I think it'd be one that Jalen Smith would certainly be really excited about, because he's a big USC guy, like we mentioned. But we'll see. Maybe a guy like Jackson Dart's available. He seemed to kind of shoot up the draft board, so it's not entirely likely. There's obviously a bit of a kind of a USC connection there. It's a little bit of a sore subject, given that he left so much.
He wasn't here for long, but he was here. Let's talk a little bit more about Jackson Dart. Last year, just for context, and people were aware, but let's just kind of mention it to kind of shape the scene. Michael Penix going at number 8, that blew everybody away. Bo Nix going at 12 blew everybody away. No one was predicting that those quarterbacks would go off the board so early, and there seems to be this late freight train of momentum, not just for Jackson Dart, but also for Jalen Milroe as well, and Shedeur Sanders. With all of the gossip surrounding him, it seems as though his stock is falling. That just invites a question about how legit you think Jackson Dart is as an NFL prospect. I gotta say, I see some raw talent and material that can be made into something, but man, his decisions were not very good. Like, I watched that Ole Miss Florida game. He just kept throwing passes into territory, into traffic. He was just continuously inviting trouble. Man, I just need to see more of a football IQ from Jackson Dart. He's athletic, he's gifted, he has the raw tools and makings. In many ways, like Jalen Milroe. Now Milroe is an even better physical specimen and runner, but there is the commonality that there is raw material with these guys, but the football IQ just does not seem to me to be where it needs to be. Now, but of course, if you're the Raiders, you could say, hey, we're paying Chip Kelly all this money to be offensive coordinator. Chip, earn your pay. Coach Jackson Dart. That could be the thought process. But how do you evaluate Jackson Dart in amidst all these tension points?
I think that Jackson Dart is a guy who I was initially very excited about. When, I think in the mess that was the first Clay Helton season, there was a brief moment where it seemed like the season may be saved after Keaton Slovis went down against Washington State, and he kind of stepped in and had basically the best first game that you can ask for out of a guy like that. But then obviously the whole situation with that was a mess. They were playing two quarterbacks and neither of them were playing super well. And then, obviously Caleb Williams comes in, and Jackson Dart's a guy who's, shown that he has the talent to start, but is not going to start over a guy like Caleb Williams, who's a Heisman level quarterback. So I think that he's he's a guy that I certainly am really rooting for. He seems like he would, if he does have success, he's going to be a real marketable guy. He was a guy with kind of a good personality and demeanor. I was always a fan of the kind of one strip of eye black. I remember him saying in a press conference way back in my freshman year that it's because he's a big Star Wars fan and it looks like Anakin Skywalker's scar. Saw another graphic about that today, and I was like, oh, a little full circle moment. I remember him saying that freshman year when he was still here. But so, he's a guy who I think that fans will really connect with, and that, might be appealing to some of these franchises that, like you said, are hearing, question marks about the character of a guy like Shedeur Sanders. I don't know. I think it's definitely reasonably possible that he gets taken late first round. Maybe you see the Raiders trading up into the late first round from 37th pick to, try to get him there. But if not, I think if he's a guy, if he's available at like 29 to the Giants, especially if the Giants don't, figure out a young quarterback to take before then, I think that he's a guy who is not polished. You mentioned he's lost Ole Miss some games that they should have won, but he's also gone out there and, had Ole Miss competitive and winning some games that, people didn't expect them to win. So I think that he's a guy who's shown enough and is a guy who, again, just kind of inspires belief and would be really exciting for a fan base if he does well. And if he's available at a spot like 29, I think he might be too good to pass up for the Giants in that spot.
And it'll be interesting to see, which quarterbacks are still on the board at various points in the draft, whether it's 29, 37, whatever. We know the Steelers are going with a quarterback at 21. That seems like a pretty safe call. Just briefly addressing Pete Carroll and the Raiders, my opinion is they should trade down from number 6. I think that, the Raiders are in a position where they need more bodies. They need more depth. So I think that accumulating more picks, more pieces, and not trying to go all in on a top 10 pick. If the Raiders had the number 1 or number 2 pick, different deal. But at number 6, I just don't see it. I think that you invite a trade down with another team that wants to go up, jump up to number 6, get a quarterback. That's my recommendation for Pete. But of course, he knows what he's doing, and I'm definitely pulling for him with the Raiders. And I write at Trojans Wire. We're part of the College Wire Network, but we have our various NFL Wire partner sites. You want to follow Raiders Wire for complete coverage of Pete Carroll's first NFL draft with the Raiders. The editor, Levi Damien, does a great job covering that team. We're always linking to Raiders Wire stories to give you coverage of Pete Carroll. We're all interested in what he's doing, and he's not way up in the Northwest anymore. He's now much closer to USC, based in Las Vegas with the Raiders.